Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, and good night. Wherever you listen, how you're listening, wherever you're watching, however you're watching, it is the Bet Online Salute to Troy podcast. And it looks like we're getting a bearded bandit brother after all, ladies and gentlemen. I love Jamal. There was a comment that said Jamal's beard grows by the end of the show. Never mind the beard. Just join Ryan and Coach and go bald.
Yeah.
Is that never mind the beard? Just join Ryan and the Coach. And
We'll test the hypothesis on the scalp as well. Yeah.
So that was good. It's just us two tonight. Ryan's traveling for the holidays. Unable to be on the show tonight, and it's fine. You know, family always comes first. We are a family-driven network, so we miss Ryan, but you know, it's Christmas time, so we can enjoy it. But we got one of the legs of the Salute to Troy podcast, the most educated man on the planet Earth. He's our Sheldon. He's our Sheldon. But
I'm doing the Sheldon laugh there. Yeah, not well, but yeah.
You're not as obnoxious. You know what I mean? He's our Sheldon. We got the Jamal Magny. How are you doing today, Jamal?
Doing well, Fred. Always a pleasure to be on with you. We're an incomplete family tonight, but family nonetheless. So excited always to jump into things with you.
Yeah. So we're going to continue our conversation from what we did. We did quarterbacks last week, and we had some big news come out yesterday, I believe. I saw it yesterday. It was yesterday. Yes. Malik Murphy's going to go ahead and jump in the portal. So that gives another free agent opportunity for Lincoln Riley in the transfer portal. So now we have Howard, Ward, and Murphy in the transfer portal. Ward and Howard are going on this world tour. They're just getting wined and dined. And when I thought about that, you know what? I don't blame them, because I remember when I took my college trips and I told every recruiter that every person that was going to recruit me, I'm taking all my trips. I don't care what you guys say. I don't care how upset you get. I'm taking this free money. I'm taking these free steak dinners. I'm getting wined and dined by everybody. So I don't blame them for that. Their decision's probably already made, but they're taking advantage of unlimited trips. They need to make a decision before Christmas. If it was me, just so you can start getting registered for classes and all those things and not be behind a ball. But neither here nor there. Malik Murphy, very interesting, right? Jumped in the portal. I'll just kick it to you first. How do you feel about it? And before I kick it to you, do not let your Bruins side affect your feelings about Malik Murphy, even though I know he made a last-minute switch. But how do you feel about this whole, now Malik Murphy's a free agent? What do you feel about this? Where does it go?
Fred, he's a very intriguing prospect. I mean, let's not forget this is a guy who made a couple of spot starts for a team that's in the college football playoff. You sandwiched in between Quinn Ewers and Arch Manning, you know, kind of the present and then the future. So he's kind of looking at a situation where Ewers probably comes back next year for Texas with the momentum of a college football playoff run. So he's going to be kind of even better and even more locked in. And then you've got Arch Manning kind of nipping at your heels behind you, getting ready to be the heir apparent possibly in 2025. So for him, I think he's making the right decision for himself in terms of leaving Texas and looking at the options available to him. I think he's a very interesting prospect physically, Fred, because he's 6'5", 240. He's exactly built like Will Howard and probably with a stronger arm and a little bit more athletic. So the question becomes, his upside is enormously high, but he's very raw. He's very raw in terms of mechanics. He's very raw in terms of footwork. He's very raw in terms of being able to read defenses. So it comes down to how Lincoln Riley thinks about development, because you've got Malachi Nelson, the 5-star. You've got another pipeline of quarterbacks, kind of 24 and beyond. Do you want another longer-term project in Malik Murphy to sort of push those guys for the foreseeable future? Or are you treating the transfer portal as someone who's going to come in right away and be your starter, a more finished product? And so to me, that's kind of the push and pull of this dynamic, given how Lincoln Riley is behaving and kind of strategizing and putting the chess pieces on the board. To me, it feels like he wants more of a ready-made product for 1 year in the transfer portal and build out his talent pipeline at quarterback more traditionally through high school and with guys with deeper eligibility. But in an interesting world here, Fred, Malik Murphy kind of has the athleticism of Cam Ward and the size of Will Howard. He's almost sort of the best of both worlds, but he's very raw. And so that ultimately becomes the trade-off of upside versus what you can get immediately in terms of production from a 2024 perspective.
Yeah, so correct me if I'm wrong. I'm a timeline Malik Murphy here. I believe he came in the same time as Quinn Ewers, or maybe a year before. A year before He came in the same time.
Same time
as Quinn Ewers. He was injured when he came in, so he redshirted. Quinn Ewers got hurt. He got some reps in games. People saw him. He does have some film out, some college film, believe it or not. The thing about it is, when it came down to who is going to be the starter this year, Quinn Ewers still was the starter. You know what I mean? And then I believe Quinn Ewers got hurt this season. Like, he missed one game.
He did, midseason. Yep.
And did Malik Murphy play for him?
He did. Malik Murphy played in that BYU game. He also played in some spot work in the middle of that season as well.
Right. So, I mean, where SC is now as far as roster, I don't think it's a fit. Right? I'm going to say this. Let me pause right there. So, remember I said that. The transfer portal is for a guy like Malik Murphy, right? He's caught in the wash. He's probably not going to play at Texas. He wants to go somewhere and get an opportunity to play. 100% that's what the transfer portal is. Now, if he's shopping for a price, he's wrong. If he's shopping for an opportunity, he's 100% right. So I agree for him getting in the transfer portal, because this is for somebody like him. If you're a guy, you're going to get caught in the wash. You're probably not going to play. You want to get opportunity to play. Yeah, go get in the portal. If you're in the portal shopping for a price after you played a whole season, that's when it gets weird, right? And then we could start talking about how there are coaches that are going out and picking guys off of rosters, offering them money and forcing them to get into the transfer portal. That's wrong. That's a different conversation for a different day. That's a lack of integrity. But as far as Malik Murphy, so back to Malik Murphy, where SC is in the roster right now, it's not a fit for Malik Murphy, right? I don't think SC needs a Malik Murphy because, as you said, they have a Malachi Nelson. They have a Miller Moss, right? They have people on their roster. The problem is, if this was year 2 and we was in this situation, I think that we'll be okay as far as quarterback, because it's either going to be Miller Moss or Malachi Nelson. We have time to build. We'll be okay with struggling with a building quarterback, because it's like, we get it. We just lost a Heisman Trophy winner to the NFL draft. We have first-time starter. Never seen him play. We have a true freshman behind him as a backup. Things would be a lot different for Lincoln, right? Granted, we don't know what the defense situation is completely different. Today, it's not good enough, right? I don't see the reason why you would bring in a sophomore, a redshirt sophomore, and you have Malachi Nelson, who has the same potential possibly and the same experience, right? You don't know where their ceiling is, but you know there is a ceiling. You know there's a bunch of upside, but why would you go and develop 2 quarterbacks? Because then next year, then you'll put Malachi Nelson in the portal. And what if Malachi Nelson ends up being the guy and you miss on Malik Murphy? That, at this situation where I am on depth chart of the quarterback, is not a risk I am willing to take. I'm not willing to take that investment.
Yeah, that's a really fair point, Fred, in terms of, because it's one thing if you get a Howard or a Ward in the room where a Malachi Nelson knows, okay, this person's just much further along. They're older. They're here for a year. I still need to kind of take another step. It's another thing to bring in someone with 3 years of experience, 3 years of eligibility left, and say, okay, now you guys are going to battle it out. Now, having said that, Malik Murphy could end up becoming better than Malachi Nelson. And so It's probably, there's a world here where you could get both, maybe, where you've got Malik Murphy and Malachi kind of competing, and then you pick your starter who you really want. And Miller Moss is sort of your 4th string at that point. It's just sort of an emergency blanket, and you proceed that way. Now, the question is, Is USC nil from, kind of a collective perspective deep enough to be able to do that relative to the other challenges that they have, particularly on the defensive side? Probably not. But to your point, Fred, I don't think Maalik Murphy is the sufficient solution here. I think you still want to go with a Howard or a Ward, because the other part of this, Fred, is you also have to win in 2024. This is year 3 of the Lincoln Riley era. So granted, he gets a bit of a reprieve with Caleb Williams leaving and needing to kind of retool the offensive side of the ball. But given how problematic the end of this season was, and it's a 7-5, we'll see how the bowl game goes, I feel like Lincoln Riley has lost all rope, all kind of honeymoon cushion, where he can't go into year 3 saying, hey, this is going to be one more year of rebuilding before we can kind of seriously contend in year 4. I think he's got to put a product on the field in year 3 to be able to really demonstrate credible competitiveness from a top 12 perspective and try and get into a playoff berth. And the question then becomes, does Maalik Murphy allow that to happen from day one? Because the difference right now between Texas and USC is USC has their Arch Manning in Malachi Nelson. USC doesn't have their Quinn Ewers. They don't have their sort of solution for 2024, which is the reason why Maalik Murphy is interested in USC, but it's also the reason why USC probably, to your point, shouldn't be all that interested in Maalik Murphy and kind of look more towards Howard and Ward.
Now, before I get to this point, I'll let you guys know that Salute Show is brought to you by Bet Online. Bowl season starting on Saturday. Catch the Madman at SoFi Stadium watching the other team play. Probably take another L, but it is what it is. You can go on Bet Online.
It is what it is.
It is what it is. You can go on betonline.ag, put in all your parlays, get all 85 games. If you hit that, you'll be set for the new year. Betonline.ag, put in promo code BLEAV, that's BLEAV, and you'll receive a 50% welcome bonus. Now, I am going to say this. There is a good fit for Maalik Murphy. There is a good fit for Maalik Murphy in LA. That's why you're laughing. Because there's a good
I knew where you were going with this.
there's a good fit for Maalik Murphy in LA. There actually is. And I know this is the USC show, and I wish we had Will the Thrill on here because Will the Thrill would love to hear this right now. I think he should go to Westwood. You know what I mean? And I say this. UCLA needs to be good for the sake of USC, right? And we talk about this all the time, and we understand the culture of the Victory Bell. Garmin understand Garmin. I'm a big fan of Garmin, even though he's a UCLA guy, and you know that. When the AD hire was happening, who did I say we should go get? We should go get Garmin. Garmin ran on the field, grabbed the Victory Bell, rushed off, ran up the tunnel with the Victory Bell. He understood how important that game was. Like, he understands the culture. UCLA being good in football is good for USC's football, right? And they understood that. That's why they're bringing them to the Big Ten. If that wasn't the case, they would have went and got the other two schools also, Cal and Stanford. Hey, we need them to come to the Big Ten too because we have this faux rivalry. They understand it. I think Maalik Murphy going to UCLA is great for the rivalry, right? There's a spot for him there right now. Now, like I said, if he's shopping for money, that's not the spot for him. If he's shopping for an opportunity, there's an opportunity for him in LA. Will there be some bad blood amongst alumni? Maybe because he was originally committed to UCLA. Correct me if I'm wrong. He was originally committed to UCLA, and then Sark came in late and stole him, right?
Yep.
So that's the thing that happened. But let bygones be bygones, and him going to Westwood might be the best position possible for Maalik Murphy.
Yeah, Fred. I mean, it's a terrific point, and I think there was a Freudian slip there. Yeah, Jarman has been fantastic for UCLA, and I remember Garmin being those old school GPS, things that you put on the dashboard.
Jarman, I apologize.
No sweat. I was thinking about that device while you were talking, but that's spot on, Fred, as usual. And I think again, Maalik Murphy, I think an opportunity to go to UCLA makes a lot of sense. They've got, Ethan Garbers with one more year, and then it sort of really opens up the aperture. Chip Kelly is still a great offensive mind, understands quarterbacks, and to your point, Fred, I think that opportunity to kind of play right away, be in a big market, kind of get all of the things that you potentially can get at a USC with your personality. Nil is one thing, but if you demonstrate tremendous personality in LA, you open up the aperture in terms of endorsements in LA, which is
Right.
sort of an independent thing than nil. So I think there's a lot there. I completely agree with you. And it's just getting very interesting now with the transfer portal, how this intertwine between SC and UCLA is taking place. Guys, it started last year with Kyle Ford, then obviously with D'Anton Lynn. We're talking about Maalik Murphy kind of bouncing between these two schools potentially as options. Another name, Fred, I think that's worth mentioning is Kamari Ramsey, the UCLA star safety who was originally committed to Stanford, flipped, went to UCLA, had a tremendous year, had a tremendous victory bell game. Now it's down to the top three with Kamari Ramsey in the transfer portal between USC, Washington, Ohio State. A lot of talk right now that Kamari Ramsey, because of the D'Anton Lynn relationship, will come to USC and significantly bolster that secondary. Can you imagine a Kamari Ramsey with a Calen Bullock? I mean, you're really talking about kind of retooling the secondary in a very significant way. So it's interesting how this intertwine now in LA is taking place with nil in the transfer portal, but that's another name to watch right now. Maalik Murphy's getting a lot of pub because he's playing the leading role and getting a lot of pub for USC. The guy to really be watching as USC fans would be Kamari Ramsey and kind of being able to bolster that secondary. Seems like he's close to making a decision, and it also seems like USC is in pole position for now.
Well, yeah, and it'll be a culture change for him, though, right? Because he's in a more competitive school academically. And I'm more enriched.
Red's not pulling any punches today, ladies and gentlemen.
A more enriched university, a better connection line, but culturally, but
yeah, he started at Stanford and then worked his way to these schools.
he reminds me of somebody that's done that before, but I just can't put a finger on him. I think his name is Jamal, but we won't go down that. But I will say this. If Kamari Ramsey is a guy that's interested in going to USC, I'll take a Kamari Ramsey. And let me tell you why. He was originally committed to Stanford, right? That instantly tells me right there, smart, right? He's a safety. A safety is considered the quarterback of the defense, right? So he's smart. He went to UCLA, top public school in America. There you go. He was able to get in. He was Stanford, UCLA. Now he's coming to SC, another competitive university. He already knows the defense. That's another plus, right? So now he's not playing. And I was thinking about this. SC's defense played very robotic. Like they weren't flowing. You get a Kamari Ramsey who knows the defense and already has the intellectual intelligence. He's just going to be flying around. We're looking at maybe a Thorpe Award finalist, a watch list, or something like that because of what he already knows and what he's already going to do. And the move is not hard for him. It may be a culture change, but it's not a city change, if that makes sense. It's still all the same thing. He could go to a Laker game at UCLA, he could go to a Laker game at USC, right? It's still LA. So there may be a cultural change within the schools, but it's not a cultural change within the area that he's in, if that makes sense. So that is something that is really worth looking at. And that's like Oscar Best Supporting Actor right there, because even though he doesn't support Maalik Murphy coming to USC, which I don't think he should, but you're right. The spotlight really should be on him because he's a guy that makes the Trojans way better on defense. He's a guy. Now we're talking about, like you say, you're in that 3-year window. There is no excuse. It's playoff or bust, right? We're not going to say national championship or bust because we're not there yet. And we should be, but we're not there yet. But he needs to be you said top 12. I'm not satisfied with top 12. He needs to be 5 and up. That's where we should be. You know what I mean? So there's no excuse.
But now, Fred, he's got margin, right? Because now that the playoff is 12, it really should be a playoff should be the expectation every year, and particularly in year 3 with the room that he's got. And the one thing I'll say, Fred, about the Ramsey point is I actually love the interplay. Can you imagine that combination with Bullock and Ramsey next year, where you've got the more cerebral guy kind of calling out the defenses, understanding where folks are lining up, and he's a thumper. I mean, we saw that in the Victory Bell game. We've seen that in other games this year. And then it allows Calen Bullock to be his true free safety self, be that ball hawk, go follow the ball, track the ball, get interceptions. I mean, that's a dynamite combination there that really changes the projection of USC football defensively in a way that gives this secondary identity that they have not had the last several years.
And I will say with that, it also helps. You have a guy who knows the defense who becomes a leader. It helps people like Damani Jones, right? Because I'm a big fan of Damani Jones, and he was a young kid, got hurt, had a bad game. His season kind of tanked, but I think his upside is phenomenal. Right? He's a big corner. He's an NFL corner. Put him in a situation where, like I said, I think it's the thought process. He was thinking way, 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 way too much. Now let's relax his thought and let's see what happens if he just plays football.
Right? No doubt. And for a Domani Jackson, Fred, he and Ramsey are the same age. So if he sees Ramsey kind of thriving, it's going to inspire him as well to sort of reach his potential. I mean, Domani Jackson's 5-star, modern day, homegrown kid. So there's a domino effect here that can take place in the secondary with Ramsey being kind of a glue and a linchpin.
Yeah, we could get that first-year secondary with the 16 picks and everything like that. So, hey, everybody on the Mightier 1090, we appreciate you guys for watching. If you're watching any bowl games this weekend, don't forget to go to Stone Brewery, get you a fight on Pale Ale from any of your local vendors. This is brought to you. Also, if you want to put some picks in, go to prizepicks.com or go on your app or Google Store. Put any 2 picks. If you put in promo code USCLAFB, we'll match up to $100. Thank you guys for listening on the Mightier 1090. So, Jamal, yeah, like that right there, you might be onto something here. Like you could create a shell that's really good. So it's confirmed that not Max Williams. Max Williams is gone. Calen Bullock's coming back, right?
Seems that way. Yeah.
Okay, so Calen Bullock's coming back. You'll get Ramsey. You get Damani Jackson. You find it. You know who I want to play corner, right? And he has a whole spring to learn it. You get Malachi Lemon at corner. We got something here. You know what I mean? Like that secondary the first year was a really good secondary. Even though the defense was bad, the secondary was really good. And I think that is the difference between this year and last year. They created more opportunities for the offense. That's why they were able to be as good as they were. Last year, the defense didn't create any opportunities for the offense, and then all of a sudden everything fluttered. So now you're going to be put in a position where you do create opportunities for the offense, right? And Belichick says this all the time. You build your defense from the back forward.
Right.
And I really do believe it because you eliminate the big plays and you get a pass rush. That's the recipe for success. So you're putting somebody who's going to eliminate a big play, comfortable, flying around the ball, and become a leader. Now you got a youngster that's going to be good at corner. You got another vet that's a really good free safety that plays center field like Ken Griffey Jr. We have something here. So this year,
I love that, Fred. I love that quartet between a possible Ramsey, Bullock, Jackson, Lemon. I mean, you're talking about not just a position to put your best athletes, your most intelligent guys, your hardest hitters all on the field at the same time, but they're going to be together with the exception of Bullock. They're going to be together for a few years in the foreseeable future. And I love the point that you made about outside in with Belichick. Look, let's not forget the greatest dynasty of the modern era in college football, Alabama. How were they built? They were built from the secondary. Everyone forgets that 08 team, the 09 team, the team that ended up kind of dethroning Tebow and beginning this run. Nick Saban started that team. The strongest unit of that team back in the late 2000s was the secondary with guys like Arenas and others. And then they had, Fitzpatrick and some of these guys, coming through. So the idea of being able to build a great defense from the secondary, I think, is very, very strong. See, the secondary becomes a very commoditized position, in my opinion, when everything else is sort of average. When you've got kind of an average front seven, or you've got only kind of pass rush ability from a couple of different places, and you're playing kind of an offensive style of ball like the air raid is, and playing kind of this 4 stops and you win the game, that sort of commoditizes the secondary. But if you truly want to be a contender moving forward and really be able to contend to win national championships and forget about kind of this 4 stops and we win the game kind of thing that SC's been forced to be in the last couple of years, starting with the secondary and building inward is definitely a great strategy. Look, it worked for the 2 greatest coaches here of the last 25 years, one in pro, one in college. So there's got to be something to it.
Right. And so, and then I'm gonna make this comment, and it's going to be against everything I believe, but I think sometimes you have to deviate from your plan in order for things to work, right? And I'm against the transfer portal. I'm not really for living in the transfer portal, but on this side of the ball, and if you do have a guy like Ramsey where you have what 2 to 3 more years depending on pro eligibility, right? And how if he has opportunity to become a pro, I truly believe that Lincoln Riley can't miss in the portal this year. He can't do like he did last year in the portal. Like the guys that he has to get in the portal, and I think he has to live in the portal on defense. And we'll get into that when we start breaking down the roster on defense. But I think he has to live in the portal on defense because you can't do it with freshmen. Not right where he's at, and not with his window closing. He has to do it with experienced sophomores and juniors who have multiple years to learn the defense and come back and play again and create a bond with a team. And that's why I'm deviating from what I say, right? Because like you always say it, the window's closing, right? And it's a really, 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 really short gap now. That window's damn near closed. We're getting a breeze. You know what I mean? So he has to get this right in the portal. If he doesn't get it right in the portal, there's going to be a check on the field, and Lincoln Riley's wife is going to know what that check means while he's in at halftime. So, like, we have to do everything possible in the portal this year defensively to become a successful football team.
No, I totally agree, Fred. I mean, urgency is the name of the game. I think of it as a 2-year window here in 24 and 25 where Lincoln Riley will have completed 4 years at USC. And if this team doesn't get any closer to a credible college football playoff run, not just kind of getting there now with the top 12, but kind of making a run, you're going to wonder whether or not he's really the right guy for the job, considering that he was inherited a Ferrari at Oklahoma for 5 years and, couldn't quite get over the hump in the college football playoff as well. Couldn't really win a big game over there. So that combined with the fact, what else does 2025 signify, Fred? It's the 20-year anniversary of Texas USC. It's the 20-year anniversary of Reggie Bush and Matt Leinart being USC Trojans and in that last kind of game. 20 years, so it'll be a generation. So you have to be able to create your own results, your own history, your own highlights, your own moments. We can't be living off of the back of the past much longer. And so to me, I think of it as 2024, 2025. If SC cannot get into and really infiltrate that national conversation in these next 2 years, it is going to be a lot harder than people realize to get back to those Pete Carroll days, to those John McKay days. It is going to be a very tall climb. So this is a critical 2 years. I think Lincoln Riley is sensing it. I think Lincoln Riley has been told it. And I think you can kind of see a fire under the belly on the recruiting trail in terms of who he's hired between Lynn and Entz. So I'm liking what I'm seeing from Lincoln Riley at the beginning of this offseason, but a lot more needs to be done moving forward because I think this is a 2-year window here.
Do you think that it's motivation, or do you think that it's like you said, like do you think it's told? You know what I mean? Like, do you think he's like, man, I do not like the way this season went. I need to get better. I'm going to go out on the recruiting trail. I'm going to go get dudes. I'm going to go win in the portal. Or do you think it's, hey, man, this is not where we're supposed to be. This is not what you told us. We're going to year 3 and we're still the same. You need to start making some changes or we're going to have to make a change. Which one do you think it is? Because me personally, I think it's a threat. I don't think this is him on his own.
Yeah, no, I think it's fair, Fred. I think it's a little bit of both, to be honest with you. Look, let's not forget, he's never had more than 3 losses in a season, and he's coming off of 3 straight losses right now. This has definitely been his worst season as a head coach, so it humbles you. I think he's had to kind of go back and reassess and reset and really sort of demonstrate a fire under the belly. He's talked about it at the end of the season that it's really going to kind of drive a fire, but I also think he's been told by major boosters and folks that really understand USC football, because so much of the narrative this season that I did not like from Lincoln Riley was, well, I inherited a team that was 4-8. Well, I inherited a situation where, we were 6-0 for the first time in a few years, where, I've taken this program from point A to point B without kind of recognizing even the immediate past history. I mean, even a guy like Clay Helton won 21 games in 2 years, won a Pac-12 championship, won a Rose Bowl, and no one kind of thinks of Clay Helton as some long-term solution. I mean, he had gashes in terms of, his ability as a head coach. So Lincoln Riley was a little tone deaf about USC history. I think he kind of came in and said, they'll be satisfied with this sort of turnaround. And I think I've noticed, at least in the recent past, is he's kind of toning that down and really focused on forward. So I think it's a little bit of both. I think his pride is hurt, but I think he's also been told.
Yeah, and if it was me personally, you wouldn't have to tell me.
Yeah,
I would have been. You would have saw recruits as soon as we were like 6-3. You'd have been like, oh, he's going to get it hard. Like, you know what I mean? Like, because it's just unacceptable. But then again, there's blinders to the culture and the expectations of USC east of Las Vegas. You know what I mean? Like, and I know it may be a little bit farther than Las Vegas, but I'm just giving a generalization, right? So there's kind of blinders, like it's just USC. They're in California. They got a bunch of players, but that's not really what it is. It's just there's an expectation for USC football, and I don't think people really understand the expectation. Our expectation for football is the same expectation that Texas A&M has. The only difference between us and Texas A&M, we have a history of winning Heisman trophies. We have a history of winning Pac-12 championships, Pac-12, Pac-10 championships. We have history of winning Rose Bowls. SC has the most Rose Bowl wins in the history of the Rose Bowl. SC has the most conference wins in the history of the conference. SC has 11 national championships, right? Like that's
Absolutely.
like what the third most compared to Alabama. Like there's so much stuff, but like you always tell us, 20 years since Reggie Bush, that's coming up in 2025. The last conference championship was this. So it failed, and then all of a sudden, I think culture gaps started to happen. Like people started to lose the culture of USC. The best thing I think you do to bring it back, you get players that you keep for multiple years. You start to rebuild that culture back. You start bringing back little things that matter to USC, and all of a sudden, things start clicking and you start winning again. But I think this year took Lincoln Riley. People are telling him, like, this ain't right. This isn't what we want. And he's like, oh, okay, they're for real. like they're for real about their football in California. I just thought it was California. Like they're for real about their football in California. And now he's like, all right, let me get this together. I'm gonna be unemployed. You know what I mean? I'm gonna be coaching in a group of 6 in 2 years instead of being at a university with unlimited resources. You get what I'm saying?
No, Fred, I think it's a great point. I mean, look, we all love the history. I mean, you said it best: 11 national championships, 8 Heisman trophies. I mean, opening day at the Coliseum next year, we're going to see the 13 unveiled. Hopefully, we see the 5 with it. That would be really nice to sort of round that out. But when you think about it, I mean, even you and me, right? I mean, we're I don't want to say we're old guys. Okay, that's not true, but we're not in our 20s anymore.
Correct.
But even for us, look, 9 of the 11 national championships that USC has won were before you and I were born. Okay, yep. So I mean, the last one of the McKay, John Robinson era was 78, right? So we didn't even live through that. So the last 2 is obviously everything here in terms of the Pete Carroll years, 02 to 08, the prime years. So our whole history, our whole identity, even in our lifetime, is built off of that. And when you go 20 years without playing in a national championship game, with once in a while kind of having an occasional Rose Bowl, an occasional run to a Pac-12 championship. I mean, think about that, right, Fred? I mean, when you are a recruit that's 18 years old and you're saying, well, Reggie Bush's last game, Matt Leiner's last game is 20 years ago. In 2 years, they weren't even born. It's kind of the way, I thought of Marcus Allen, the way I thought of OJ, the way I thought of Mike Garrett. Look, these are great legends. When I went to USC, understood that, but I didn't have like a personal connection because I just wasn't born. I wasn't there for it, but you respect the history. You have to be able to have those personal connections and those ties to the success, because once you lose it, it's really hard to get it back. And money alone doesn't get it back. I mean,
right.
Just ask Texas A&M, just ask Tennessee, just ask Auburn, just ask some of these teams that where it's a real struggle to kind of get back into contention once you've sort of lost it. So that's why this urgency is so important. And when you talk about name, image, and likeness, and when you talk about collectives, that gets exacerbated even more, because guess what? USC's mega donor base when it comes to football is getting older. And so there will come a time when they're not around. And so someone is going to have to carry that baton in terms of the mega donors to be able to write those 7-figure checks, to be able to be competitive from a collective perspective. And if those folks don't have a connection to USC football, they're going to put their money in other things at USC, other things in Los Angeles, other philanthropic things, other business endeavors, other things where they do have more of a connection to. So that's why, from a business standpoint, from an economic standpoint, these next 2 years are so pivotal.
And to piggyback on what you said, here's the best example I could give. Every halftime home game, there was a check presented. When I was there, when I played there, every time there was a home game, at halftime, there was a check presented. No matter what the check was for, there was a check presented every halftime. When was the last time you saw a check presented at USC, right? Winning cures everything. And like you said, like, you want to pass the baton. Like, there's no more Galens. There's no more
tutors and Annenbergs
and Annenbergs. Yeah, they're not there. Galen's gone. Galen was around when I was there, but he's not. God rest his soul. Like, but he's not around anymore. Like, those big names aren't there anymore. The big names are coming up, but the big names are like, yeah, I'm not going to give my money to football. Like, they don't win, right? But you start winning, collective takes care of itself, right? The Roman takes care of itself. Here's a good example, and we'll come back on this because this is something we need to see after August. I guarantee you the Roman's going to drop at USC this year. I guarantee you, right? The Romans shot up last year. Everybody wanted to go to USC last year, and I guarantee you they won't have the same problem this year because they're back to being average. Like, there's a reason why people want to go to Duke. Not only because it's a prestigious university, because they want to go to the Camerons. They want to go to Cameron Indoor, right? There's a reason why people want to go to Alabama. There's a reason why people want to go to Oregon. I don't understand why. They don't win any big games. They just have nice uniforms, but they think their football team is excellent. That's the most average crowd I've ever met in my life, but it is what it is. But I mean, there's a reason why people want to go to North Carolina and those schools is because they win. They want to be a part of that culture. They want to be a part of winning. They want to be like, oh, I was there when we won the national championship. If you don't win, you don't get Roman, right? And UCLA's and Roman's not an issue, right? Because their basketball team's still going to the Final Four. They still go to the Poly Pavilion. They're still a part of something, right? And and SC's not understanding that. How do you get it back is our culture. And everybody's like, oh, you guys are so lost in the times. It's not the fact of being lost in the times. It's the fact that if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? You can tweak it a little bit.
You're exactly right, Fred. I mean, the one thing I'll say is it's not necessarily about being lost in the past. It's about bringing some of the best of the past into the future because you can't just sort of look forward and play this sort of transactional game with nil without bringing the thing that you have at your advantage, which is your history of success, which is your pedigree, which is your tradition, which is your school spirit, all of those things that sort of make USC USC. And I think that's what's really important to sort of bring in moving forward. Look, right now, when you talk about the landscape of college football, I think there's really only one metric that matters, and that is the number of seven-figure donors you have associated with your football program. And I look at it this way, Fred, and just kind of going end to end. I think a school like UCLA for football has maybe 2 or 3 seven-figure donors. I think USC for football has about 10 or 12 or 14 seven-figure donors. It's between kind of 10 and 15. And then when I look at the upper echelon of the SEC, Alabama, Georgia, LSU, and then you throw in Michigan, Ohio State, throw in Texas, I think they have probably 24, 25, 30 seven-figure donors for football. I think that's where this lies. So I think USC's really strong when it comes to the historic Pac-12, West Coast, west of the Mississippi. But in terms of being able to compete at a national level, more needs to get done. There is a gap. You keep hearing it. There is still a gap with USC from a nil and a collective standpoint that they need to close. I think Jen Cohen's doing a great job fundraising when it comes to the new facility, when it comes to the new football center and being able to pull big dollars there. But I sometimes wonder whether we've sort of missed the curve. I think facilities and football centers were the thing 10 years ago that make a difference. I don't know if football centers like you, it's nice to have, you need it. It's there. It's great. USC needs a really great home. But I think the thing that now makes the biggest difference is how big your nil is. I think 10 years ago is your football centers. 20 years ago was maybe kind of the quality of your education, your campus, all of the other things. I think now it's all about the nil collective. So it's great that SC's doing the football center stuff, but they have to kind of close that gap with the nil collective stuff. And that's why to get that number from 10 or 12 to 25 or 30, these are the things that you have to do. You have to channel a little bit of the past to best position yourself for the future.
Do you think winning will get that? Because and let's clarify it for people watching, because we're going to get, we know they have the ability to become an upper echelon nil or collective. So we know that part. Do you think winning, I shouldn't say winning because they won last year. Do you think consistently winning and becoming the team that we expect them to be, do you think that brings them from, we'll just use round numbers, 15 all of a sudden to 25 collective people, and now or 7-figure donors? So all we need to get those 5-7-figure donors to become an upper echelon program is we just need to consistently win and make a consistent playoff run. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, I think, Fred, it's part of it. I think it's necessary, but it's not sufficient. I think that you have to win, number one. This is LA. This is a market where if you don't win, people get bored. There's just too many other things to do, whether you're a USC alum or not. I mean, if you're not winning, there's just so many other things in the land of LeBron and Shohei and all of the different things that are going on in LA, whether it's Hollywood, whether it's the cultural stuff, the music, the food, the pretty girls, the beach. There's a lot going on in LA. So you have to win. But I think the other thing that you have to do also is, at least from a USC perspective, I think you have to impact culture. I think you kind of have to be a cultural dynasty in a lot of ways. You have to be culturally consistent in how you win. I mean, that's kind of what made USC very special in the 2000s, Fred. It wasn't just that they won. It was sort of how they won. It was the personalities. It was Pete kind of being Pete and just 100 miles an hour all the time and just having all of this energy and competing all of the time. Leinart was dating Paris Hilton at the time. Reggie was dating Kim Kardashian at the time. I mean, this was sort of a pseudo-celebrity team. The Lakers were down. Shaq had just left. The Dodgers, the McCourts were going through a bitter divorce. There was no NFL football at that time. USC kind of became LA's team, both college and pro during that time, and really kind of changed culture, came at the intersection of sports and entertainment in a way that was uniquely positioned for USC. So I think they have to not just win, but they have to win and impact culture and impact entertainment. And they're uniquely positioned to do that, given the football history and also given the film history. Everyone forgets, look, the first kind of great football player at USC that really kind of transcended culture was John Wayne, the Duke. And he was on the USC football team in the early 30s. And he was that first guy to kind of cross over sports and entertainment. And I think they have to channel that to really kind of get this thing back. You can win, but, the San Antonio Spurs have won, to a certain extent, like Alabama has won. To a certain extent, there's other teams that have won, but they haven't had the swag, had, kind of the aura, the panache, the flash that I think really resonates with LA. And I think when you think of USC, you think of the intersection of sports and entertainment. So I think it's the sports piece. You got to win, but you also got to do it in a compelling way and be kind of an entertainment product as well.
The funny thing, there's only 2 cities in the world that you could do that. And we're one of them, and the other one is Miami, right? And then when you bring in the culture part, Michigan is still doing it with their culture, right?
Yeah.
Michigan is going to be Michigan, right? Nothing's going to change. They're always going to be the maize and blue. They're going to be who they are. And so it does work. I think because we're such a progressive state and a progressive culture in California, it's that's old. But sometimes if that's the case, and this is an example I used before, tires are old. Tires have never changed. Just because the tread on the tire has changed and the way you nut the tire to the axle has changed, the tire is still the tire, right? A tire on a 65 from 1965 is the same tire on a Tesla today, right? It's the exact same thing. It still has disc brakes. It's still bolted down to an axle. So those are the things that people don't understand. We could progressively keep the culture, but like you said earlier, we have to bring the things that moving forward. So,
and Fred, the one thing I'll say is culture is timeless. So we're not saying that it's old or new. The great cultures are timeless. When you think about 3 of the 4 teams right now in the college football playoff, I would argue they have maybe 3 of the strongest cultures in the sport. I mean, when you talk about Michigan and just the emphasis of what it means to be a Michigan man. I mean, we've heard it kind of time and again, and just how, even through kind of this whole Harbaugh ordeal, it was all about Michigan values, Michigan man, blue collar, and really sort of channeling the inner spirit of the Midwest. When you think about Alabama, I mean, Saban's got that thing rolling with all the, sort of pretty Southern girls and, the pom-poms and just everybody in the South so galvanized with Bama. And I, so much of their identity is Bama football. And then when you look at Texas, I think Texas's culture is back. You got Matthew McConaughey with his cowboy hat and the buckles and the boots, and he's out there, and bringing all of his friends and all these, very wealthy, successful alumni and others and all alumni, in kind of their, fashion and in their culture, once again, that's really thriving. So it's about bringing that culture, and the culture is different depending on geography. To your point, the Midwest is a very different culture. Texas has its own culture. I think Deion is trying to channel some of that Colorado, Pacific Northwest, Southwest type of culture as well, to his credit. That's why he's wearing the cowboy hats and doing all this stuff. And I think he's trying to lean in. They got a long way to go. But I think USC's culture, what is distinct about USC is the intersection of sports and entertainment. They got to lean into that.
Yeah, especially with George Lucas right there, the George Lucas School of Film right there, walking distance from your facility. Like, you can look out the window and it's right there. So
exactly.
There's no reason for it. Hey, so that's pretty good. I was going to say something, but I forgot. Oh well, we'll keep moving. We'll wrap this thing up. We'll finish it with this. It is Christmas. Oh, that's what I'm going to say. If everybody's so progressive about culture, then stop putting a Christmas tree up, because that's one of the oldest cultures ever, right? That's a time over time culture. But neither nor there. It is Christmas spirit. So the next 3 shows, because we probably won't do a show in 2 Monday. We'll do a show on the 18th, but we won't do a show on the 25th unless you became Jewish all of a sudden and your holiday is almost over. But the next 3 shows, Christmas wish. So I'll put you on the spot now, and then you'll have something to think about the next 2 days. What's your Christmas wish for SC football program? What's your first one?
My Christmas wish for SC is really to be in a position where this kind of cycle, in terms of kind of the transfer portal, we start seeing some heavy hitters on defense, and you start seeing some 4-star guys, some 5-star guys, and some guys that have really produced in a significant way or have been part of very big programs. There's some commits, there's some warm intros, there's a lot going on. But my wish for USC football is 4 or 5 or 6 kind of heavy hitters coming on this defensive side of the ball to really set them up for success in 2024. Last year was Bear Alexander and Jamil Muhammad kind of took the headlines. Lucas as well. Some pan out, some don't. I'm hoping that number is 5 or 6. And then, you half of them hit, and then you've got 3 really good additions on that front 7 in particular to really become competitive in 24.
Yeah, so I will say this because we're going to comment on it on a later show, so we're going to reference this show. I was a 3-star athlete, right? And the reason why I was a 3-star athlete is because I was a tweener. At that time, tweeners were so I've never played safety in high school. I was always an outside linebacker. So they didn't know if I was going to be a safety or a linebacker. I will say this. I was ranked in the top 50 as a safety, never played safety in high school, and I was ranked in the top 50 as a linebacker. So there's my out, because it's going to get to a point to where we're going to have to talk about we're getting too excited over these 3-star commits.
Yeah, absolutely.
so we'll talk about that at a later date. But I do wish this. My wish is that right now, my first Christmas wish is that I hope that Lincoln Riley, D'Anton Lynn, and the rest of the staff stay strong on this recruiting trail, but I just wish they get a little bit more aggressive and start getting better guys, right? And I'm talking about the stars, start getting better guys. There's an Oklahoma linebacker that's still out there. There's a quarterback that's still out there. There's D linemen out there that are begging to get picked up, right? So I just wish that they stay hot on this trail, but I just wish that they get a little bit more aggressive and start getting better talent in the recruiting circuit. Neither here nor there. Jamal, we did it again. We did it without my other bearded bandit, we did it.
We miss him. We miss him, but he'll be joining us, of course, in the next one.
Yeah, it's 11 o'clock where he is right now, so he's probably sleeping. Good deal. I appreciate you guys. Thank you guys for listening. This has been the Bet Online Salute Detroit podcast, the Madman, Coach Rowe. We did it again. You guys know how it goes. Live free, fight on.